Picture a dusty West African border crossing at night. Engines idle. Headlights smear the darkness. A column of trucks stretches out of sight. Soldiers step forward. Orders are barked. One after another, the trucks are waved to the side and told to cut the engines. Word travels faster than the wind. The transitional leader of Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has just blocked a convoy. The number ricochets across social media and YouTube. Dozens upon dozens. The claim that grabs attention is simple and dramatic: 57 trucks, stopped cold. The question that follows is even sharper. What were they really carrying? If you are new to AfriPol Lens, welcome. This is the channel where we take viral claims about African politics and security and test them against facts, context, and common sense. In this episode, we dig into a story that has set comment sections on fire. A leader with a reputation for hitting back at corruption and smuggling. A border where everything from food to fuel to illegal arms has moved in the shadows. And an arresting headline: 57 trucks blocked by Traore. Stay with me, because by the end you will know what is confirmed, what is unconfirmed, what is likely, and what is wishful thinking amplified by algorithms. Let's start by tracing the claim itself. The story of 57 trucks did not begin in an official government communiqué. It did not appear first in a major newswire with a named customs official and a specific location. It rocketed into the conversation through creator videos, short clips, and reposts across platforms. The versions share the same skeleton but differ in the flesh. Some say the trucks carried weapons hidden under humanitarian supplies. Others insist they hauled strategic minerals. A few suggest cash or counterfeit currency. The more sensational the cargo, the more views the clip seems to get. That is a pattern you and I have seen before. Now, let's anchor ourselves in what we do know. Burkina Faso is fighting for control on several fronts: against insurgent groups, against the erosion of state authority in rural areas, and against the underground economies that help fund violence. In that environment, border operations and truck seizures are not rare. Customs has publicly announced interceptions before. There have been confirmed cases where trucks carrying agricultural commodities were impounded for violating export rules designed to protect domestic supply. There have been confirmed cases of drivers kidnapped in the borderlands, a stark reminder of the insecurity that surrounds these routes. So the idea of a government ordering a mass stop and search operation at a crossing is entirely plausible. But plausible is not the same as proven. So the next step is to ask practical questions. If there were 57 trucks, where exactly did this happen? Which crossing? Dakola on the Ghana side? Kanchari toward Niger? Yendera toward Ivory Coast? Koloko toward Mali? Pega on the Ghanaian side of the Dakola corridor? A genuine operation of that scale would leave a trail: statements by customs, a notice to importers, chatter among local transport unions, or at least a photo or two from bystanders that can be geolocated. The viral clips point to the headline but rarely to a place, a date, or a document. That gap matters. Let's move from the where to the what. If a government stops a long convoy, what are the most likely categories of cargo? In this region, 3 stand out. First, agricultural goods such as cowpeas and shea nuts. These are high value, move in bulk, and are sometimes smuggled to skirt export controls or taxes. Trucks full of sacks are easy to visualize. Second, fuel. Diesel and gasoline are lifeblood commodities in the Sahel. Price controls and shortages create incentives for smuggling. Tanker trucks or rigid-body trucks with drums are common on these routes. third, general merchandise, including consumer goods, spare parts, and building materials. Any of these could be stopped over customs documentation, routing violations, or suspicions of concealment. What about the most sensational claim, the one that drives the views: weapons? Could dozens of trucks be carrying military-grade arms? In theory, clandestine arms do move across West African borders. But large-scale shipments are typically broken into smaller loads to avoid exactly this kind of detection. And if an entire column of trucks were found to be stuffed with ammunition and rifles, there would almost certainly be unmistakable follow-on signals, court announcements, televised displays, coordinated statements by neighboring governments, and a major regional echo. That kind of evidence has not materialized. A smaller arms seizure disguised in a larger convoy of ordinary goods is easier to imagine. The difference between a targeted seizure within a convoy and every truck being part of a single plot is not subtle. It is the difference between a sophisticated smuggling technique and a cinematic script. Another popular twist is the claim that the trucks carried Africa's hidden wealth, gold, diamonds, or other strategic minerals. Here the logistics work against the rumor. High-value minerals are usually moved in small consignments, tightly controlled, and often by air or in secure vehicles, not in dozens of bulk trucks that advertise themselves by sheer size. The exception is industrial ore, but then you are talking about loads that have export manifests and mining company paperwork that is much easier to verify. When a story leans on the mystique of treasure without the mundane details of bill of lading numbers or company names, your skepticism meter should tick upward. So what might a real, responsible explanation look like? Imagine a border task force receiving a credible tip about a subset of trucks within a larger flow that are misdeclared. Officials halt the entire line to isolate and inspect the flagged vehicles. While they work, the rest of the line is stuck. Someone films the traffic jam and posts it with a dramatic caption. The post travels further than the later, boring clarification. In this scenario, an initial stop of many trucks could coexist with a final outcome where only a portion were actually in violation and impounded. That is how border enforcement often plays out in the real world. To understand why this matters so much in Burkina Faso right now, look at the bigger picture. Traoré's government has framed itself as a sovereignty project, wrest control of territory back from insurgents, wrest control of policy away from external pressure, and wrest control of the economy from illicit networks. Whether you support that strategy or not, it naturally brings crackdowns on contraband and informal cross-border trade. It also brings information warfare. Opponents will amplify stories of failure. Supporters will amplify stories of dramatic success. The 57 trucks headline sits in the middle of that tug-of-war. Let's ground this in a few real-world signals that help us read the environment. Customs has announced seizures of multi-truck consignments of agricultural goods headed out of the country without permits. That shows a clear appetite to police borders and the ability to act at scale when commodities are involved. We have also seen how dangerous these corridors are. Drivers have been abducted in the northeast of the country near the Niger frontier, and later released across the border. That tells you just how contested and fluid these spaces remain. Both facts fit a world in which a leader would authorize aggressive checks when intelligence suggests trouble in a convoy. Now, let's zoom in on the number itself. Why do viral claims love oddly precise counts? Because specificity sells. It feels authoritative. But when the only details that survive the journey through reposts are a leader's name, a big round number, and a promise of shocking cargo, treat it as a narrative device until corroborated. Numbers without dates, places, and documents are like license plates without vehicles. They identify nothing on their own. This is the point where we compare narratives against logistics. If the claim is that every single truck in a convoy carried hidden weapons, the logistics are unwieldy. Concealment becomes more difficult with scale. If the claim is that a subset of trucks within a larger convoy had hidden contraband under legitimate goods, that approach is more consistent with known smuggling tradecraft. If the claim is that a government seeking to deter smuggling publicly dramatized a stop to send a message to networks on both sides of the border, that too fits the politics of deterrence. The most likely reality sits in the overlap of these possibilities: a broad stop, a targeted seizure, and a political message. What about humanitarian cover stories? In conflict zones, aid convoys and commercial convoys sometimes look similar from a distance. The paperwork, not the paint job, is what matters. There have been past allegations in other regions that smugglers masqueraded as aid, and there have been cases where aid has been looted by armed groups. That history gets imported into new rumors even when the evidence is thin. The responsible question is always the same: did named agencies disavow the trucks? Did customs publish serial numbers? Did courts list charges? And did neighbors issue reciprocal statements? In the absence of such signals, be careful with sweeping conclusions. Let's also address the elephant in the room. Why would so many creators publish the same headline around the same time? Because the algorithm rewards virality. A compelling title and a dramatic thumbnail pull in viewers. Then other channels copy the package to avoid missing out. It becomes a mimetic event. The content underneath often recycles the same few lines and adds speculation. That does not make the claim false, but it does mean you should mentally label it unverified until proven. At this stage, you may be asking, what is the responsible takeaway for viewers in the United States who are trying to understand what is happening in the Sahel? First, understand that borders in this region are not lines on a map. They are living, breathing systems where trade, culture, and conflict intersect. A stop of dozens of trucks can be commerce one day and a national security issue the next. Second, realize that governments in crisis will lean on high-impact actions to signal control. Big seizures, televised burnings of contraband, and publicized raids are part of that toolbox. Third, remember that the information space is contested. You will see overhyped praise and overhyped scandal on the same day. Your job as a savvy viewer is to ask for details that make stories testable. With that in mind, here is the most defensible reading today. Reports that Traore halted a large number of trucks at a border are consistent with an aggressive posture against smuggling and with past customs operations. There is not, at the time of this recording, widely corroborated public evidence that all of those trucks were part of a single plot to flood the country with weapons. It is far more likely that a broad stop led to targeted inspections, some violations, and a political signal that the state is watching the roads closely. That signal, amplified online, hardened into a legend about a convoy. Legends often grow around a core of truth. The task ahead is to keep separating the core from the legend. Now, imagine for a moment what it means if even a fraction of those stopped trucks were carrying prohibited goods. It means someone believed they could slide through a border in a country at war with smugglers and insurgents. That belief does not form overnight. It grows from patterns, from networks, from officials who look the other way. Breaking that belief takes visible acts. That is the context in which a leader would want the world to hear about a dramatic stop, whether or not the entire convoy was dirty. Before we close, let's look at the human side for a moment. Drivers on these routes are not faceless villains. They are often hired hands who take whatever loads pay, moving through stretches of road controlled by whoever holds a checkpoint that week. They are threatened by armed groups, pressured by handlers, and squeezed by fuel prices. When authorities hit the brakes on a line of trucks, the drivers take the immediate hit in time and money, not the people who arranged the cargo. Any serious border policy has to make room for that reality by pairing enforcement with clear, swift processes that do not treat every driver as a criminal by default. Here is where this story connects to the wider regional map. Burkina Faso is part of a new Sahel alignment with Mali and Niger. Borders, sanctions, and alliances have been redrawn in rapid succession. When a story like the 57 trucks pops, it is interpreted through those lenses. Supporters see a sovereign state defending itself against foreign-backed plots. Critics see theater designed to distract from the hard grind of restoring security across the countryside. Both readings tell you more about the reader's priors than about the cargo bay of any particular truck. That is why we insist on elevating facts over feelings here. So what should happen next if the authorities want to put this to bed? Simple steps. Publish the location, the date, and the legal basis for the stop. List the number of vehicles impounded, not just stopped. Identify the categories of cargo that were in violation. Provide photos that can be verified by independent observers without exposing sensitive methods. When states do that, they do not just win the law and order battle. They win the narrative battle too. You might be thinking, where does that leave us tonight? It leaves us with a clear call for caution. Be skeptical of any story that asks you to accept a spectacular claim on faith alone. Be open to the possibility that something real happened, because real things do happen in these borderlands every week. Be demanding about details. That is how we respect the complexity of a region that is too often reduced to caricature. I want to hear from you now. If you were sitting in the Interior Ministry, what proof would you publish to settle this? If you were a journalist on the ground, what is the first document you would ask to see? If you were a customs officer at the crossing, what made you decide to stop the trucks in the first place? If you were a driver in that line, what would you want the public to understand about your job? And one more. If even a handful of those trucks were dirty, what changes would you make tomorrow to the way your country, wherever you are watching from, handles its own border enforcement? If you found value in this deep dive, here is how you can help keep AfriPol Lens going. Subscribe so you do not miss future investigations. Like this video so the platform knows this kind of careful work matters. Drop a comment with one detail you would want confirmed about this story and why. Share the video with that one friend who always sends you the most dramatic headlines. And if you want even more context, tell me which borderland rumor you want us to dissect next. As always, thank you for spending your time with me. The Sahel is a complicated place. It deserves reporting and analysis that treats it with respect. Stay curious, stay careful with what you share, and I will see you in the next episode.